I just want to confirm. All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin, just to confirm you are online with us today?
Yes, I am.
All right, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting for February 12th, 2024. Call the meeting to order. Ask for adoption of the agenda as presented, please. Councillor Firth,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
motion on the table. All in favor? Councillor Bruin? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Just to confirm, Councillor Bruin is online with us today, and Councillor McLean is not able to attend today's meeting. Item 3, public hearings. There are none. Item 4.1, adoption of the minutes. Regular council meeting January 22nd, 2024. Mr. Tebow.
The regular meeting minutes are in front of council for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Anything arising? Someone prepared to make the required motion. Councillor Renfort.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion that council adopts the minutes from the regular meeting of council held on January 22nd, 2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councillor Bruin.
Favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6, bylaws. Item 6.1, proposed bylaw 2-2024 long-term borrowing. Mr. Tebow.
We'll have Mr. Orwa come up and speak to the borrowing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Orwa.
Good afternoon, members of council. Before you are 3 bylaws. The first bylaw is the bylaw number 2-2024. That's the long-term borrowing for the 41st Avenue cast iron and sanitary replacement. Now, that particular bylaw, I would say the bench associated with this particular bylaw is 10 years. That means it's long-term. So when it is long-term, it has to be advertised as per the MGA. So for this particular one, we're just requesting for the first reading. Once the first reading goes through, it will allow us to do the advertisement. After the advertisement for about 2 weeks, there's a cool-off period of about 14 days. If there is no objection, then I will file in the applications with Alberta Capital Finance. So that's the first bylaw before you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Orwa. Mr. Orwa, I just wondered if I've received a fair share of questions related to these fee rates or rate hikes rather on the utility bills, and I believe Councillor Beckett maybe has also had some inquiries. Can you just kind of explain and just kind of give us a rundown about how that's working here as of January 1st?
Thank you very much, His Worship. So the bylaws that you have before you are utility-driven. That means we are going to service these debentures through utilities. Now, if you look at the first one, we were estimating, based on our utility model that we shared with council earlier. For the first one, the long-term borrowing is about 3.08 per month. That will appear on the your utility bill. So if you take that one, we have approximately about 3,400 accounts. So we are going to generate about 126,000 to help us service that debenture. But previously, if you recall, we had what we are calling the secondary clarifier rehab. That was about in 2023. And based on that, we had to break it out. This one was a flat rate moving forward, but that one was broken out where we had the residential was about $6 and the non-residential was about $7.50. Now, if you look at your current utility bills, it's been taken out. And there is a reason behind it. If you recall, originally we had about the project cost was about 3 million. To be precise, about 3.4 million. That is what we were supposed to apply for as a loan. But there was some delays there. The reason why we delayed is because we are also pushing some grants to come through, because that was a very high dollar amount to borrow. Now, in that process, we were very lucky. We did get some grants from, if you recall, Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater Partnership. So with a total cost of 3.4 million, we did get about 1.23 million from Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater. So that left us with about 2.166. That is what we borrowed. But the actual loan, we got it in December. Meanwhile,
right.
we were already collecting utilities from January 1 through December 31st. So I think administration saw it wise that we need to give relief to the citizens, not to pay, because we had already collected the money. Since the debenture came in, the money came in end of December, we want to use that money to pay for the loan in 2024. That is why we took it out of the bill. So this one now, in year 2024, the additional one that will be seen on the bill is this particular one, once we borrow. That is the long-term borrowing, the first one. And this one here, as I said earlier, has to be advertised.
Right, all right, thank you. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have had some questions about this as well. And another part of this that I try to explain to residents is that it's the intention of council that our Town of Taber utilities be self-sustaining. In the past, it was costing us more than what we were bringing in through utility fees. And so this is part of that move. Rather than subsidizing our utilities with taxes, is that the utilities should pay for themselves, and that these fees are to service the debt that we've needed to undertake to make these repairs, so that our water and wastewater can continue functioning as it does.
All right, thank you. And also clarification-wise, I think council is very aware of this, and administration as well, but the public at large seems to be confused somewhat about this being utilities applied to the tax level. Taxes and utilities are two separate things, correct, Mr. Roy?
Yes, I would say technically, yes, they're different, but somebody would say they're all taxes. But I think they're very different in the sense that
Right.
Utilities have particular areas, as Councillor Father has explained well.
Right.
We want to make sure that it's self-sustaining, which is opposed to the actual tax where we'll be levying depending on the assessment that will come through in the current year.
All right, thank you. Just also to clarify, Mr. Tebow, I think, or Mr. Egan, either one, I think some of these infrastructure repair requirements are going back some 30 years when they were done initially or more, I believe, correct?
I couldn't speak exactly to the age of them, but when they need to be redone, chances are end of life
Right.
was a 30-year lifetime for some of these things.
Right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Orwa, so is there any chance or possibility of any future grants to be used for these projects, or have we crossed all those avenues?
With the grants, we never close any avenues. We will continuously and aggressively look for them. And I think that is why when we got this one here, if we didn't get the 2.16 million from Alberta Municipal Wastewater, we could have borrowed 3.4, but because we got that one, we reduced it. And we keep on looking for those grants. And in cases whereby we get those grants, we would want to utilize them first before we touch the taxpayers' money.
Can I
Absolutely, you bet.
ask one more? So instead of a flat fee of $6, it's equaling about $7.62 for the 3 projects. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's about correct. That's if you add the 3 plus the 90 cents. Yeah, that's about correct.
And so we won't have the flat fee of the 6, and we won't have the flat fee of the $7.50. Everything is just going to be this $7.62. Is that what you're proposing?
For clarification, yes, in 2024. In 2024, they are only going to see the ones you see before you today, and the $6 and $7.50 will be out. You'll never see them in 2024. They will come back again in 2025 to keep on servicing that debt.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Right, someone prepared to make the first required motion? Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council gives first reading to long-term borrowing 41st Avenue, 51st Street to 53rd Street, cast iron and sanitary replacement bylaw, project bylaw 2-2024 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councillor Bruin? Councillor Bruin, are you with us? Al, have we lost Councillor Bruin? Councillor Bruin? All right, we'll see if we can get him back by chance, but there's a motion on the table. All in favor? Councillor Bruin?
In favor.
Carried now. So thank you. Item 6.2, proposed bylaw 3-2024, short-term borrowing. Mr. Tebow.
Mr. Orwa will remain.
All right, thank you, Mr.
We are
Orwa.
looking for all 3 readings on this particular one.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thibault. Again, before you is bylaw 3-2024. This is now a short-term borrowing bylaw, and the total cost here is about 650. So we made it below 5 years and below. So what that means is I don't have to advertise. I can now fire the application straight to Alberta Capital Finance with the resolutions coming from council. So I'm requesting, or the administration is requesting, all the readings to be read today before you.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Orba, long-term borrowing, 10 years. Short-term borrowing, what's the threshold? Is that 5 years or five years? According to the MGA.
5 years and below, according to MGA, short term,
Yeah.
and anything extra is long term.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Mr. Orwa, I do see that there's a little bit more revenue generated by your calculation of $364 per month. Payments would be approximately $147,000, and the generation of income is $149,000. So what would happen if there is an over amount that, or increase, or however you would word that?
Thank you very much for that question. So the one below, the 149, is the actual based on the model that we passed through council. But the one for 147 depends on the interest rate. So right now it is at 4.81. I even checked before I walked in here. We are now at 4.79. So there is that fluctuation of interest rates. We don't know exactly, because the right and the correct interest rate will be charged when the application is complete. So at that point, it might be higher than this, or it might be lower than this. That is what will give us that flexibility in between.
All right, Councillor Sorensen.
And so thank you, but then we'll still have that set rate for this first year of $3.64, even though the interest rate's not locked in, we'll still just charge the citizens the $3.64.
That is correct. We are just charging what council had approved. But I can assure you, like when we did the rehab clarifier, I brought in here interest rate of about 4.8 something. But when it was locked in, we locked it in at 5.23. So with experience, I know eventually at the end of the day, the difference between those two will be very, very minimal.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Councillor Bruin, any questions you're in? Councillor Beckering?
Prepared to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Very well.
Council gives first reading to lagoon sludge removal, 3 cells, project bylaw 3-2024, as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried now, so thank you. The second required motion, Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council gives second reading to lagoon sludge removal, 3 cells project bylaw 3-2024 as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Someone prepared to make the third required motion, Counselor Rumford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council unanimously agrees to proceed with third and final reading to Lagoon Sludge Removal 3 Cells, Project Bylaw 3-2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Tebow?
I'm not sure that was the right motion that you read. Did you say Lagoon, Councillor Renford?
I believe you did.
Oh, yep,
Yes.
right, sorry. I
good?
moved on to the next one on my
Okay.
computer. Trying to stay ahead of you guys. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Counselor Sorensen? Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be prepared to make the last motion that council gives third and final reading to Lagoon Sludge Removal 3 Cells Project Bylaw 3-2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.3, proposed bylaw 4-2024, short-term borrowing. Mr. Tebow? All
Once again, you'll be speaking with Mr. Orwa.
right, thank you, Mr. Orwa.
Thank you again. So this is the last bylaw 4-2024. Again, short-term borrowing for downtown sanitary pipe relining and cleaning project. Again, it is 5 years and below. That is the term. So this one can also go through so that we can put in the application.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, none whatsoever. Counselor Bruin, any questions you're in?
None of mine.
Thank you, Counselor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be prepared to make the first motion
All right,
that council gives first reading to downtown sanitary pipe relining and cleaning project bylaw 4-2024 as presented.
thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Counselor Rumford.
I'm ready to make the second motion, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right.
I make a motion that council gives second reading to downtown sanitary pipe realigning and cleaning project bylaw 4-2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Counselor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council unanimously agrees to proceed with third and final reading to downtown sanitary pipe relining and cleaning project bylaw 4-2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Counselor Becker, you're on.
No, one of you.
Oh. Would you like to deal with the fourth
Yeah, thank you,
required
Mr.
motion?
Mayor. Yeah, okay. I'll move that council gives third and final reading to downtown sanitary pipe relining and cleaning project bylaw 4-2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Orwell. Item 7, action items. Item 7.1, health and safety policy, C4 review. Mr. Tebow.
I see we've got Miss Grace Noble. Probably will come up and speak to this one.
All right, thank you, Ms. Noble.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So before you, we have the renewal for our health and safety policy. The changes that you see on the proposed are being brought forward based on our recommendations for improvement from our core certifying partner, AMSA, who recently provided us with our 2023 internal core audit results. So these recommendations are based on OH&S legislation and making sure that we're hitting our content points for our policy.
All right, thank you. Any questions whatsoever? None whatsoever. All right, someone prepared to make that required motion. Councilor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be prepared to make the motion that council accepts the health and safety policy C-4 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.2, letter of support to request Kids Zone. Mr. Tebow.
We'll get Miss Amy Elred to come up and speak to this one.
All right, Ms. Allred.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have received a letter from Kids Zone requesting a letter of support. They're expanding their operation and adding another building to their program. They have 180 kids registered with only room for 120 at the moment. So they will be adding 160 spots. There's a draft letter of support attached. Do you have any questions?
All right, any questions arising? Counselor Sorensen.
Thank you. I guess I'm on a roll. I'll make a motion that council authorizes mayor and CAO to sign the letter of support for the Kids Zone Child Care Services Incorporated.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.3, updated land sale motion. Mr. Tebow.
So we'll have Miss Amy Allred also speak to this one. If council recalls, this was in our previous meeting, and Amy will speak to what the discrepancy was in the recommendation only. It was not in the documents. It was only in the recommendation that was made last time.
All right, thank you.
Yes, so we are here to correct a clerical error that was in the land sale motion. The numbers on the address were switched. It should have been 5431, not 5413. So we are requesting that council rescind the original motion and make a new motion with the correct address.
All right, thank you. Councilor Bruin, I believe that was your original motion. Would you like to rescind, or anybody else in council can also make that motion? But
Anyone can, I'm not worried.
correct, all right. So I'm prepared to make that motion. Councilor Renford.
Yeah, yes, again, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion, I make the motion that council rescinds resolution 35-2024. I'm gonna read it all out. Oh, I do. Moved by Councilor Bruin that council directs administration to accept the offer of $400,000 for 5403-5413 47th Avenue and authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to sign the land sale contract.
All right, rescinded motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor.
Opposed? All right, carried. Thank you. All right. So I'm prepared to make the next required motion. Seems that has been rescinded. Councilor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the council directs administration to accept the offer of $400,000 for 5403 to 5431 47th Avenue and authorizes the mayor and chief administrative officer to sign the land sale contract.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, on to item 7.4, confirmation of financial contribution GMF application. Mr. Tebow.
So I believe this is going to be a two-part discussion. It'll start with Mr. Blake Horanek, who will explain and refresh council on the program. It was something that was previously discussed last September with the resolution in place. I believe that was in the documents. So we'll get Blake to speak to that, and if there were some financial questions, Mr. Orwell will be available for those.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
Administration successfully submitted the full application for Taber's version of the Clean Energy Improvement Program with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in 2023. We should hear back a final decision by FCM sometime in Q1 of 2024. During the full application process, administration confirmed the contribution breakdown as per FCM's funding model. Taber's contribution is calculated at $432,710. This request for decision confirms the source of capital to fund Taber's contribution to the program. As a clarification for council, all costs associated over the life of the program will be recuperated by administration through property taxes. This includes Taber's matching contribution. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councilor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. Horanek. When will residents be able to apply?
That's a great question. So once we hear back from FCM, we will work with administration for program rollout, and that would be sometime into mid 2024, but there's no firm date.
All right, thank you. Councilor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Blake, can you give us a couple examples of what would qualify under this program, besides solar panels, of course, but what else is all?
Sure. So there's a list within the our tax bylaw for this, but Some examples would be improved insulation in your attics, high efficiency furnaces or heat pumps, depending if you deem that's viable as well. High efficiency windows would also qualify, any sort of air sealing, on-site renewables, stuff like that. Maybe an on-demand hot water tank system as well, instead of your conventional domestic hot water system. So stuff like that.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like there's a lot of advertisements perhaps of other grants or other funding that you can use for other green energy programs. Can this be combined with other sources?
So to my knowledge, there's a federal Canada Greener Homes grant. This can't be stacked on top of this. This would have to be separate. The main difference is with the Canada Greener Homes grant, the financing is on the individual, whereas the financing through this is on the property. So they're not stackable, unfortunately. They're just two very separate programs tailored for different financial situations.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rannick, I see this only applies to residential buildings. Is there any program in place for commercial or businesses that you know of?
There are some other municipalities in Alberta that I believe have a commercial component. We wanted to roll this out as a residential program first, and if the success is there, we can look at expanding it to more of a commercial setting. But there's a lot of nuances and a lot of technicalities when you start getting into the commercial sides of things. So this was kind of our first step, and we'll see how that goes from there.
Thank you. Any other questions arising? Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I just be prepared to make a motion.
All right, very well.
I make a motion that council directs administration to make a maximum contribution of $440,000 with funds to come from capital reserves to undertake the financing for the Clean Energy Improvement Program.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7.5, Tank 77 update. Mr. Thibault.
Mr. Chris Egan is available to provide this update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Egan.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Before you is an RFD prepared by administration to provide an update to Council on the advances and the background related to the Tank 77 initiative. We took the opportunity to provide some background information, several paragraphs related to the original grant, the downtown revitalization work that was done by, proposed by administration and supported by council, the adjustment of that grant to include the park at Parallel Church, which contained the Tank 77, at that time was called the Sculpture Initiative. On January the 8th, administration came to council proposing a planning and programming initiative to better understand the scope, features, and function of the Tank 77 feature. And we received council direction to review the costs and potential of a 50% replica on the site, the Parallel Church Park site. So we've completed that information and review for the most part. So we spoke with Fortis, who operate the overhead power lines in that area. In the package, you'll see that they're indicating that any structure requires a 6-meter exclusion zone between the highest point of the structure and the power lines. There's a drawing that indicates that a 50% Tank 77 replica would need to be relocated away from the original plan, which is also in the package, which puts it closer to the existing or the new sidewalk that was put to allow access to the park. This siting of the replica and its adjacency to the sidewalk violates some of the principles behind the crime prevention through environmental design, CEPTED requirements. Because the path, if we left it in the existing location, and for now, conceptually, we've just left it as is, because relocating it to allow a little bit more distance and sight lines, so someone traversing that path in the dark would not, the opportunity to surprise that person by using the Tank 77 replica as a hiding place, that would force the relocation of the sidewalk, changes to the lighting scheme and power layout in the park and the irrigation system. So that isn't included in the pricing because it's still conceptual. We have, our consultants have generated a opinion of probable cost of $250,000 for the replica itself. That would include all of the planning, design work, geotechnical reviews and surveys, the tendering, procurement, and construction and turnover of a replica of that in that 50% size. And we also took the opportunity to produce a preliminary project schedule that indicates from January the 8th, about a 44-week duration to go from the idea through all those parts of the process to turnover. And so that's an opinion, again, of probable duration, given standards of design, building, and tendering that we would need to go through for a project of this size. And so those are the four major components that we were able to assess and provide the response and information back to council on the 50% replica concept.
Right. Thank you. Any question rising, Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. Egan. According to the package, I just want to clarify, the unspent grant amount is $324,000 and some change. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the projected cost for this replica and then all of the other work would be approximately $500,000. So we'd end up spending more than what we have in unspent grant money.
If the $500,000 is related to the construction of the 50% replica,
yes,
and the removal of the overhead power lines bearing them, which is a
right,
Fortis cost of
right,
another $250,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In conjunction with that, Mr. Egan, there's been some considerable discussion regarding the grant. Is it still ongoing, or have it been turned down or approved, or what's the story there?
So the grant extension is completed on March 31st, so the federal calendar or fiscal year. So just 6 weeks from now. I think I originally said it was December 31st, and so that would be something good to correct now. But we have made overtures and to Prairies Canada, one of the grantors, and asked if we could get an extension of another building season in order to either make the Tank 77 replica move forward, and we have some other options for other work in downtown parks that would still fulfill the requirements of the grant. And they've flatly said no to us. They said this March 31st, there's some issues on their end where they are not prepared to offer any kind of an extension. So we still have until March 31st to complete work and invoice for work.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Egan and maybe Mr. Orwell can answer this because this all rolls back to the bulb outs. And I thought that there was only like 350,000 or something available for the bulb outs for us, this grant. But then we've purchased land, we've, done some beautification of that area. So I just still don't understand why there's still that amount of money still available for the grant. Maybe we can get that clarified.
Sure, I can do part of it with the scope. So the original scope of work for the downtown revitalization project included the bulb outs and underground work to replace underground lines. The 6 murals that we constructed in 22, and then there was the banner project. So those were the three major components that made up that grant, with the bulk of it being the related to the bulb outs and underground work downtown. When the grant application, when we made application to change the grant, we retained the murals because they were done at that time. The bulb out and the banner project were removed, and then the construction of the park was allowed under the grant. The actual purchase of the land was not allowed, and that's been done. Was a separate resolution done to and approved by council to use reserves to purchase the land.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Egan. I'm not quite clear on this grant stuff. The grant, we've been approved for the grant, but we have to use the grant before the March the 31st, correct, sir? So if we construct this here, replica in July, no money.
No money. Yeah, so the requirements are that, so a grant is approved, in this case for the $551,000, and that number was not changed with the amendment. They just left that in place, even though at the time we told them the construction of the park would not be the same amount as the bulb outs and underground work downtown. They were fine with that, and they left the grant amount as it was. And the principle there behind is you have to expend the dollars and pay for the invoices prior to the close of the grant. Any work, and so and then the funding mechanism, 75% paid for by the grant, 25% by the town, which is part of the grant conditions. That kicks into place for whatever invoicing we have totaled at that point. So we've received a progress draw for the murals, and so that's been dealt with. And now we're just dealing with the construction of the park, and which includes the Tank 77 initiative and that concept. We've only constructed the park, which goes to the $163,600 that was expended on the park construction. Nothing's been expended on the Tank 77 initiative or that component as of yet. But we do have 6 weeks to do something, get it invoiced, and pay for it prior to the end of the month of March.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Egan. I think there's maybe some confusion about the $500,000 figure related to the power line scenario. That was if they were to be buried, correct?
So Fortis provided us back in October an estimate of $250,000 because that was originally, conceptually, we wanted to get rid of those power lines. They're not very sightly, and we believed that they would cause problems with any kind of structure. At that point, we were looking at a full-size 100% replica. And they advised us that burying those lines in that area would be about $250,000, and we would need to make a formal application. They would have to do a design. They would come up with an actual number because that was just an estimate, and then we would have to absorb that in the project. The Prairies Can allowed that work to take place. The problem was between the cost of the replica and the cost of that work, around $500,000. We only had, at that time, we weren't sure exactly what the park would cost, but at best we were thinking $250,000, $300,000 was all of the grant money that we had remaining. And so at a cost of $500,000 to do that work, we couldn't manage that within the existing budget. And the timing was such that we went ahead with the park construction and created the Phase 2 initiative for Tank 77.
Right, okay, so that's, yeah, I think that was sort of understood sometime back that burying the power lines wasn't practical and really even discussed per se previous. But, so that's, that $250,000 out of there per se, right? Same thing. So we're still back to the $325,000 that's available in this grant, as you indicated initially, correct?
So that's the unspent portion at this point in
Okay.
time, yes.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess back to the 6-week window. Mr. Tebow or Mr. Egan, is that something that can go out fairly quickly also then? That you're aware of, Mr. Tebow or Mr. Egan, either one?
I'll let Mr. Egan speak to that, and if there's something in addition to offer that he has mentioned, then I can chime in.
Just for clarification, which expenses are you inquiring about?
I guess I'm talking about the tank replicant or whatever. They talked 50 percentile for format suggested previous. So that and or some other option if that's what you're leading up to in that regard. But
So the 50% option's about $250,000, but it's a structure, so it will require a tendering, and to do that we require construction drawings, and there needs to be some site investigation, geotechnical, because it's fundamentally a building, is the way the building code looks at it, and so there's that full process, which is 40 plus weeks long to get from start to finish. We could move ahead with the programming. I think we could move ahead with the planning and programming part that was suggested on January 8th. That was that $6,000 bill. And try and accomplish that work in the next 3 to 4 weeks, get an invoice and get it paid before the end of March. And that would allow us to understand the ultimate use of the facility and the structure, its purpose in relation to the strategic planning documents of the town, sort of the why and what, and then we could use that information to move forward with grants, new grant applications for the structure, and place it into our capital projects list to be prioritized by council.
all right, thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Egan, and I think that's my whole conundrum is like, what's the purpose of this? You know, why are we just having a structure that can't be played on, people can't enjoy it? I would much rather support something like a playground or something that, people can actually use for $300,000 than just a replica of a structure that no one can actually, other than just maybe take a picture of. So it's hard for me to support this other than it being structured into some type of playground or playground equipment or something. That's something, I'm struggling with.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you for your comments, Councillor Sorensen. There is some historical significance to the structure. There's no doubt about that. This Tank 77, that's how Jaber became in being, right? But I agree with Councillor Sorensen that of what benefit is it really? A useful benefit, I guess. My opinion is that unless it is 75% grant funded, I'm opposed to it. So, but you said something just a minute ago that might be some new grant funding available or not? Or did I misunderstand that?
So we don't have a grant that we're targeting with this particular initiative, but like the previous grant, any downtown revitalization, anything historic, tourism related, this kind of a feature, and depending on, so the concept of programming is actually to describe what purpose it has to fulfill, and therefore what amenities and how it has to be built. If it's just an image or a monument, we could accomplish that with a plaque. If it needs to be played upon, then that would create a different kind of a structure that would serve that purpose or allow that activity to take place. And so knowing all those requirements will allow us to then reprice it, understand how long it would take and what we have to do, and configure a document that we could then use to seek out other grants in the future that come up that this type of a facilities or this type of a feature would meet that set of criteria. And so there seems to be a steady stream of, it's not every week that they come out, but certainly our grant writers, if they understood that these are the key parameters and this is what we're looking for, then they would actually aggressively seek out grants that would apply, and then we would bring those back to council with the initiative, and that may help you prioritize this initiative against all the many other capital initiatives that the town is looking for.
All right, thank you, Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar to the intent of Councillor Sorensen's comments, I think if our intention is to commemorate the location of Tank 77 and to provide information, that a replica isn't necessarily the only way to do that. As Mr. Egan said, a plaque or an information board with, or maybe possibly pictures. I just think there's more effective ways to commemorate that location than with a very expensive replica that likely is not going to be grant funded.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Egan, so if we didn't have this time frame of March 31st, we'd have, with the 250 cost, you'd be able to get through your 80-week thing. Like if the grant was hooked to time, we'd have enough money with the 364 now that I'm not bearing any power lines. Okay, in your thing, you hope to get through the programming and maybe the site confirmation and some design. How much do you believe you'd be able to pay an invoice that you could use of that 364? Because if you did 100, we'd still be on the hook for 150, and hope for a grant or use it into capital or into other projects to try to get a grant. What number would you get of that 250 by the end?
So the cost of programming would likely be between $5,000 and $10,000. We're talking about consultant time and availability of council, or if you referred this down to the Arts and Heritage Committee to do that programming work for you and bring back a recommendation. But there's a component of consulting, and we're just paying that. We pay that by the hour. So
The bulk of the money would be after.
yeah, we the design in the and that's, I could look it up specifically, but we probably have 8 weeks worth of design work after programming and after we do geotechnical. So that's probably 12 to 14 weeks away, 20 weeks away.
All right, thank you. I just want to clarify to make sure that understanding the history, and Councillor Becker is absolutely right. This is a very historical piece. It's what Town of Taber is all about. Tank 77, called Tank 77 before it was ever called Taber. So that's where that tank comes in. The first actual structure in the town of Taber, 1885. So the Parallel Church Group came to us as a delegation with the concept initially, with the design drawing, a professional design drawing. And in fact, I believe that individual was hired by the town to carry on with that. Correct, Mr. Egan?
Yes, we employed them to
Right.
do some detail work on the park.
Correct, yeah. So again, it was them coming to us as a delegation that we approved as a concept initially, and the Tank 77 being the focal point of their presentation. Is that accurate? That wasn't accurate.
They had a circle. They presented a plan view, so an overhead view, a layout of the concept that they were thinking about developing themselves. And certainly,
Right,
Tank
yeah.
77, there was an object on that plan
Right.
that provided a location or proposed location. It was a concept, and so there weren't detailed design drawings or anything like that for that Tank 77 structure at that time.
Now that gal's own design, I guess, she's a graphic designer. I think is what her credentials are, right? So I guess they had that in a design format, but yes, they did have some of their own concept as well that they're still, I believe, working on. That's yet to be completed, or it started, but yet to be completed. But again, that was a big piece. Maybe not the complete focal point. The whole thing, I guess, was a focal point. So I guess that's what I'm trying to convey and understand with everybody else involved, or to be on the same page here. That historical piece is a very big part of this, no matter how you stack it. Correct?
It would, yes,
Yeah.
depending on what it is. If it was, at that time, we assumed it was a
Right.
full-size replica.
Right. Yeah,
Just
I know. And that's
because-
not doable. The 50-foot or whatever was not doable. So is there any other recommendation your end that if we reduced that somehow? We said initially 50%, kind of threw that out there, I guess, was for lack of better terminology. But is there anything else you would recommend in that regard for a concept piece similar?
Without understanding the goal, the use of it, it's very difficult for me to come up with concepts or ideas that would meet that set of requirements. And so typically they're there's always several ways to solve the same problem, or the challenge. I'll put it that, it's not a problem.
Right.
The challenge of what it is and what we would like to accomplish with it, because of the linkage to, is it a historical piece or presentation? Is it tourism related? Is it a play structure? It's a, so it's somewhat just very similar to the process that we use to develop the Trout Pond Recreation Area Master Plan, but a smaller and more focused version on the Tank 77
Right,
issue.
yeah.
So it's I don't really have a recommendation at this point in time.
Okay.
Even the 50% model, I would say, as you can tell, we haven't recommended that go.
Yeah, I
forward
understand.
because
That's
of
what
the
I'm saying.
relationship
So I
with
don't,
security.
is there a reduction option that may be something similar or close in that regard? I guess maybe tough to put you on the spot there. I'm not trying to do that. But just kind of a guideline, I guess, I'm kind of asking for in that regard.
Yeah, I wouldn't, again, without knowing what it is to accomplish from council, resolution from council to direct me in some fashion, I guess that would be looking for from administration. I'd like to give you the standard answer from administration, so we can do anything.
Yeah.
As long as you tell us what that answer is, then we go and put the package together and make sure it meets your requirements, both financially, duration-wise, and deliverables, and then you release us and give us approval, and then we go execute and report back what we've done. So I would suggest we could, if we move fast, and is accomplish that programming and do some site exploration and try and answer the question I'm struggling with is, what does it need to accomplish and what does it need to do in order to be an asset.
May I speak?
Councilor Bruin, absolutely, yes.
Yes, I'm listening to all this. I'm thinking maybe we, like, it would be great to see a tank there, but perhaps would be just as well off to have an archway going into the sidewalk, home of the Tank 77, and save a lot of money on this. It seems like we're getting out of hand with what this is going to cost. I'd be in favor of a plaque, same site of the original Tank 77, that people could see instead of spending this much money on a tank.
All right,
You
thank
know,
you. Pardon me?
That's just my thoughts. I wouldn't be in favor of spending this much money on a tank.
All right, thank you, Councilor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to elaborate, I would think it should be a tour. My concept would be that it's a tourist destination, that people want to actually spend a bit of time there. And so if it was a playground, young families could go there, spend a bit of time, and then actually proceed down to the downtown corridor, which we're wanting people to, kind of shop and go downtown. So if there's an opportunity to incorporate a tank into that design, I think that would be like what I would be asking for, but that's just my opinion.
All right, thank you, Councilor
I
Firth.
like your opinion.
Councilor Firth?
Thank you. Again, if the intention of council is to commemorate the site of Tank 77, I don't think a replica is the only way to do that. So I would agree with what Councilor Sorensen and Councilor Bruin have said.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thibault.
I just wanted to chime in. We had been talking, I've heard the word plaque a couple times. I think there is actually a plaque already on a rock over by our corn stalk. I'm not 100% certain, but in walking around, I think I've read something about Tank 77 on a plaque already. So I don't know that we'd want to reproduce that, but I just wanted to make mention if council was thinking about a plaque, I believe one, administration would have to check, but I do believe one exists.
All right, thank you. Just maybe I have a question for Councilor Sorensen. I'm not quite sure what kind of model were you suggesting, what you just indicated?
Well, like I'm sure that the playground company can incorporate some type of fun design with some type of, even if it's a steel structure, then it allows the light to flow through. So then maybe you won't have these areas that are danger or more threat to crime. So even if it's a metal structure, which can incorporate a bit of playing for people, but still be designated as a tank structure, And then we can have a plaque that commemorates the Tank 77, just something like that.
Yeah, I guess thank you for that. I guess I just go back to, and I have had some conversation with some of the group that attended as a delegation. I know that's their hope and their goal. That's why they presented in that fashion. And so if this doesn't fly in some capacity for some kind of replica, whatever we decide if we go that route, they're going to be really disappointed. I know that for a fact. That was their concept. That was a big part of their presentation, as I recall reading that on paper, hearing them in person there, and other conversations with them in the last few months. A big part of their ask, absolutely. So, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. But kind of going around the mulberry bush a little bit here, I think, and we're spitballing, and it's not the proper venue to do it. But regarding the mayor's comment regarding the presentation made by the group regarding the importance of the replica tank, it was mentioned. It was of some importance, but it was not the most important by far. The most important by far was the beautification of that particular location, as opposed to the importance of the replica. So I don't agree with Mr. Mayor on that. And I think, from my perspective, this thing is dead in the water. But I don't know. There's no motion on the table, so can't speak to any motions, but we should be doing that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Mr. Tebow?
I just like to, if I may speak.
Councillor Bruin, sure.
I like Councillor Sorensen's suggestion incorporating a tank-like playground there. That wouldn't have to be nearly as tall as we're worried about. And it's still, something that shows that the tank was there at that time. I really like that idea of a playground there.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
Can I make a motion for administration to investigate the proposal of having a playground, which is a replica of Tank 77 and commemorates the design of a tank, but also is functional as a playground set. So is that all right as a motion?
That's a pretty good motion, I think, overall. I'm just trying to think, I guess, yeah, I think I understand what you're trying to say. Councillor, or Mr. Tebow?
I think that is a motion that could work for us. I am wondering about, from a funding perspective, Mr. Egan, do you know if we can expend this grant money to move forward with if we have some investigation costs or anything like that, is what might be covered by this grant? Because we don't, right now, there's no funding source to speak to unless this covers that.
The grant does cover design work for the park, which would include the Tank 77 initiative.
Right.
And I'm sure that they would be fine with any design work for a playground structure that provides the image of Tank 77 and can commemorate that. We can probably just get that priced through Blue Imp or other providers and come back. There's a limited amount of space in that park, so it won't be a big playground, but we can certainly, and if we needed any design work, we could pay for it under the grant, for sure. Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Egan. I guess I'm kind of on the fence with that motion, to be honest. Councillor Sorensen, but it's a pretty good motion, it is. But I'm just wondering I'm just not sure what that concept looks like. I'm trying to understand, or is that just open-ended for as administration to look into, as far as what might be practical? Is that what I'm understanding?
If I can,
Sure,
Mayor.
yeah.
Like, I think that the concept of a tank is pretty vague, and I think that if you give that idea to these designers, they can come up with something that they can do some pretty extraordinary things. And whether it's just a wooden structure with a metal roof on it, or an actual, feature that, or a playground that has the concept of a tank, but then it's practical for people to actually use.
Right,
That's
yeah.
what my concept
Okay.
is.
Okay, and as Mr. Egan said, there's limited space, so I guess we're looking for some engineering expertise from yourself or others involved with that. All right, thank you. Councilor Becker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a motion on the floor, I believe. correct?
There is, that's correct.
That's a motion, yeah. So I'd like to speak to the motion, if I may. How big is that particular area that we're talking about playground? I mean, that area is not that big, is it? Like, you're very constricted to what you can put there.
The original footprint of the tank 77 was 20 feet in
Yeah,
diameter.
what are you gonna do, Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Sure,
What are you
yeah,
gonna,
yeah.
what can you possibly
It's not that big.
put
Rick.
there to play on? I mean, I don't understand
Yeah,
that aspect of it.
It would be a small playground.
yeah, very small, yeah.
But we can work up that concept and a price and kind of present this type of information back to you for information, and then you can decide whether that's merits further investigation and or redirection, just like the 50% model and the information associated with that stimulates.
Yeah,
Our RFD was really just to stimulate this conversation and discussion.
right. No, you're right. Thank you. Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm saying playground, but it should be just a play structure. Like, I'm not hoping for it to be this big elaborate thing, but something that's just, the public can actually use as a play structure.
All right, so, yeah, okay, I think, so you're saying something to clarify or recognize or recreate something with the tank 7 incorporated in this, kids running in and out or jumping in and out of it, crawling in and out of it, or whatever it may be, something along those lines, so, yeah, I guess, like I said, overall, it's a pretty decent motion, Councilor Sorensen. So we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion?
Can we have that read back to us, please?
Okay, okay, fair ask, Councilor Brune, it will be read back, thank you.
Councillor Brune, can you hear me?
Yes.
So the motion reads, Councillor Sorensen moved for administration to investigate the proposal of having a playground which is a replica of Tank 77 and commemorates the tank but functions as a playground set.
Okay, if I could make one suggestion to that, I remove replica of the tank, something that commends the tank or something. Like when you say replica, you're talking about building a tank again. So it just has to be added, like, it says tank 77 on it somewhere or something like that. But a replica, like we're building a tank again.
Councilor Sorensen?
Or commemorates, would that be different?
Yeah.
Better wording?
That's a good word.
And then just a friendly amendment to my own motion. Instead of a playground, should it just say a play set? Would you like, instead of a playground, a play set, or can
Well,
it stand as is?
I'm not sure it's your motion, but it's
Okay, it's the
along
same,
the same line.
and I accept the friendly amendment from Mr. Bruin.
All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7.6, standing items. Council requests. Mr. Tebow.
I'll try and make this one as painless as possible. The ones that are listed as in progress remain in progress. We are waiting on the utility folks still for the sidewalk structure, and on the traffic committee for the other two. And then, of course, we just received Mayor Prokop's request for the sound system last meeting, so that's still in progress as well. So I'll turn it back over to council if there was anything to add.
All right, any new council standing item requests? Councilor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the previous RFD this evening, we discussed the charges for the 3 projects to be included into the utility bills to a tune of about $7.60, I believe it was, and it was passed by council, of course. I've had I'm surprised, considerable discussion with various people about this particular method of charging for something. And as council may recall, I was not too enamored with that whole situation when we discussed it, but it passed, so I support it. But I had a phone call today, and the person said, Garth, we know we have to pay one way or another. And that's true. I mean, it's a tax or whether it's a utility charge or whatever it is, it's you got to pay, and it's all the same. Well, it's not, but it's all the same. But he said it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Why are you guys doing that to us? What, next year you're gonna have to buy you're gonna need to buy a new piece of equipment to be used for utilities, and you're gonna put a debenture on that too. I mean, how far is this gonna go? You got to buy a new pipe wrench. You got to put a debenture. You know. I said to the guy, well, no, that's ridiculous. But there's considerable dissatisfaction by the way we're proceeding, Mr. Mayor, and I know it's passed, and so I want to belabor that point, but I will say that I would request and make a motion that direct administration to include in the next utility bills considerable explanation of the reason why we're doing it this way. I mean, as a counselor, you can tell people the reasons, but unless it's on paper, I believe, it's in a formal situation and very clearly explained, it's not going to go over very well. And I think people will understand, but they don't understand the reasoning, I believe, Mr. Mayor. So that's my motion to, in a very positive way, of course, put that in the next utility bill inserts. Okay, that's it.
All right, yeah, you know what, speaking of favor of the motion, I've had exactly the same comments from a handful suggesting just that, would like to see something on paper, as you said. So I would support that as well. Any other questions, comments? Do you have a motion on the table? Councillor Sorensen?
Well, just on that same topic, just to explain, it's not never ending. There is a term to it. So the first one is 5 years, and then the next one's 10. And for us to honor that as council, that, when it is paid off, then we can honor that and reduce that fee.
All right, thank you. We do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councillor Bruin?
In favor.
Carried unanimously, thank you. Anything else? No other standing, council? Maybe.
I have just a question going back to the park motion we just made. This is going to be well fenced for the public from the train tracks, right?
Who are you directing that question at, Councillor Bruin?
To anyone that can answer it there. Like there is a fence that's going to be around this playground area.
Mr. Egan, you mind fielding that? Or Mr. Tebow, either one?
So Councillor Bruin, there's an existing fence now between where the park would be, where the play area would be, and say the train tracks. There is no fence on I think it is the west side where the sidewalk is, so right across the street from the Fast Gas. So I guess it's partially fenced.
Correct.
Yeah, I just thought that concern. Kids and trains don't mix that good sometimes, so.
All right. No, they don't. All right. Thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was discussed at the last chamber meeting that the MOU in the agreement with the land that they're building their new building has not been completed. So I have a concern that this wasn't ever done. Like their MOU probably should have happened the time that this $1 million loan came into effect. And I just think it should be immediate. They're ready to start building in the spring, and yeah, I'd like to see this in place.
All right. Thank you. Is it a question or just comments?
Well, I can make a motion.
I'll just, Mr. Tebow, you had any information related to that or no?
I could add that under item 10.3, that is a discussion for tonight.
All right. You okay with that, Councillor Sorensen? The stage, we can certainly
Sure.
come out by way of motion if there's a need after that, if that's the case.
Okay.
All right.
And then I just have one more thing.
Sure.
Unless someone else. I've seen when we're driving around that there's, well, with the corridor of the Highway 36 and then Highway 3, that maybe some of the larger trucks are getting lost. They're turning on to different streets and then they're stopping right in the middle of the street and then using Google Maps or something to find their way. I'm not sure if in your traffic committee, if this has been discussed or if there's any way we can provide signs for truck routes.
All right, thank you. I think Mr. Tebow is very familiar with that scenario. Some pull up right outside the office, I think, do they not?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with over by Highway 36. There is wayfinding signs there already, not that they couldn't be revisited and perhaps enhanced. But I do know that outside the administration building, there's vehicles, lots of reefer trucks come park over here because they're being told to look for American Logistics. And so when they come from the States, American Logistics tags that for here, this building. But when they come here, I go out to their truck. Yeah. I've done it about 14 or 18 times, and they have to type in Amlog Canada, which actually is 15 kilometers east down the highway. So I've done a lot of that here at the administration building, but if it's happening over on Highway 36 or something, I don't know that particular area or that topic.
Yeah, I wonder just, Mr. Tebow and Ferris, would that be a transportation question by chance, if that's where that's occurring? Alberta Transportation?
It's actually occurring from the company name called American Logistics, because when they come up from the States, they don't tell the drivers that in Canada it's called Amlog Canada. So I don't think there's any transportation signage that's going to help
that's
that.
not what I meant, not here, this location for that business, but I meant Councillor Sorens's location concern suggestion. Is that possibly a transportation question?
Oh, for an Alberta Transportation and their signs,
Yeah.
they definitely would have to be consulted if there was any signs going to go on their highway or right away. It can't just happen through us. We would have to make a request to Alberta Transportation to get something.
All right, thank you. So I guess saying that this has just come up as of late, Councillor Sorensen, or has that been going on a while?
Well, I've just noticed it over the past, 4 or 5 months, just as I've been traveling myself. So I was just bringing it to everyone's attention. It doesn't want me to speak, but I just thought I'd bring it up to everyone, and if anyone else has ever noticed it, maybe there's something that we could potentially do or discuss in your traffic committee.
All right, perfect, thank you. Any other stand item council requests? All right, seeing none, I've asked to move into a meal break. 30-minute break. Councillor Beckering, absolutely. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councillor Bruin?
In favor. So I just stay on this line, or is another?
Carried unanimously. We'll be back in just 30 minutes or so, Councillor Bruin, and we can get you back on the line, I believe.
So Councillor Bruin, there is a second closed session link that you should have received.
Okay, I'll just check that. I gotcha. Okay, I see that. So it is.
Oh, and just to move. Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'll log in just after 5.
I see. Yeah, that would be just an amendment for Councillor Becker, if he so wishes. Okay, amended motion on the table. Friendly amended motion on the table to move into closed session. All right, all in favor? Councillor Bruin.
Favor.
Carried now, obviously. Thank you. Okay. All right. All right, all in favor? All in favor? Carried, sorry, yes, we did already. Yeah. Just waiting for Jack. Carried now, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, in favor.
Yes, all right, thank you.
I hit start, so we're good. We're live again, or it's recording, not
just recording. Yes, okay. Recording. Okay. Just two motions to take care of. Item 10.1, Councillor Sorensen, that'll be yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that council approves the Economic Development Assistant position as a full-time permanent position and increases the 2024 operating budget amount by $1,875.70 to come from operating reserves.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.2, Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that council directs administration to accept the terms of the Meadows lot price increase contract amendment and authorizes the chief elected official and the CAO to sign the agreement.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, just a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make it.
Sorensen, Councilor Sorensen beat you to it. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Jack, for being there, and enjoy the rest of your time in Mexico.
Mexico, how much moisture we getting there? Lots of snow?
We've had about 6 inches in the